Hey everybody, Sam here. Before we get into the episode this week, I just want to bring up that we did some hashtag sponsored content for Wizards of the Coast earlier this week. Yes, that's right. You can hear all about it in our episode called HSM Bonus, The Salty Cards of Duskmourn. We released it just a couple days ago on the main feed, and if you haven't checked it out, we would really appreciate if you did. We're super excited about this opportunity. We loved making the episode, so go check it out. You'll be glad that you did. All right, that's all I got. Let's jump into the main episode. Play that theme music. One podcast, mining the Magic the Gathering community for salt. This is the Howling Salt Mine.
It's the Howling Salt Mine. The Howling Salt Mine.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Howling Salt Mine podcast, the podcast where we delve into those salty mines of the Magic the Gathering community, find the salty stories, those salty posts that we love to read and hear, and we put them in our mine cart, and we bring them right back up to you, our dear prospectors at home. As always, I'm your host, Sam, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Mike and Tony. Say hey, guys.
What up, what up, what up?
Hello.
Hello, indeed. And before we go any further, you know we got to shout them out. Our nice tier patrons. And this week we have Alex Balix, Green Bean, Prime Speaker Florian, Dr. Black, Accidental TPK, and ZZ.
Nice.
Thank you for being so nice. We really appreciate the support.
Thank you.
So I am in a deck building slump, guys. Honestly, I think it's been a year-long deck building slump.
You told us 2 days ago that you just made an entirely new bird brew.
That's literally the only deck building that I've done in a long time. And I haven't finished the list. I got it like 90% there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just seeing it slip through my fingers. And I'm like, that's when it kind of dawned on me. I was like, I think I'm in a slump. Like, I'm not finishing any of these lists.
Yeah.
I was thinking back to, like, maybe it was a Patreon episode we had at the top of the new year, but there was something that we did where we were talking about decks that we wanted to build over the course of the year. I think it was an Extra Salt episode.
Yeah.
HowlingSaltMine.com/Patreon if you want to check that out. But we talked about like the decks that we're currently playing, decks that we want to take apart, decks that we want to build. And I remember I had this deck idea. It was Bjorna and Othelm, which are the Friends Forever reskinned Stranger Things commanders.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my 2 Sun Titan birthing pod combo list.
Yeah.
And I was so jazzed on it. And I was like, man, I'm going to make this list. It's so fucking sick. And I remember at the end of that section, Tony was like, you're not going to fucking make that list. You're only going to talk about it right now, and you're never going to make it. And I was like, fuck you. I'm going to make it. Today, I remembered that. And I was like, I didn't fucking make it. Tony was right. It's like, been, granted, you know, I've had some other stuff going on, but I've had time. It's been 9 months, and I haven't fucking built this list, man.
But it's not just that. You're saying like any list.
But yeah, it's like any list. And I've had intentions to take.
Aren't you tinkering a bunch in Marath?
But you got Sisse together this year, right? That was in
That's
2024.
true. I got Sisse together, but that's not a ton of like deck building, I guess. That's like putting a list in paper. And, you know, CDH is kind of a different animal because it's so much easier to build on. But I guess that's true. Like, I did come up with my Marath mid-range list this year and have been messing with that a lot with the Discord. So that has been super fun. And you're right. Sisse did come together this year, which has been super, super fun. But like for casual, I think it's really only been Abdel Adrian.
And that was just tweaks. Though large overhaul.
Yeah, that was make tweaks,
pretty big
break
overall.
it, and then redo deck because no longer work.
Yeah. That was like picking up the broken pieces of a pane of glass and putting it back together to make a beautiful stained glass.
Putting it back together still differently.
Yeah, putting it back together very differently to just be an oppressive combo deck. But yeah, I don't know. I keep like starting these deck lists and I just never finish them, man.
Has something changed for how you build them? Or you're just not finishing things? Like, I mean, to be honest with you, I've known you for a while. And I feel like 9 times out of 10, you would have a billion different deck lists running around that weren't complete. So it doesn't feel that different for me. But I guess I haven't seen any new decks that actually got completed from you in recent times.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the piece. You just haven't, you're stopping at the 90% on most of them and not getting all the way across the goal line.
That's pretty much it. And I've like tinkered with a few lists. I mean, granted, the Abdel Adrian list was a pretty big overhaul, but it's still mostly tinkering with like an existing shell, you know? But like these lists that I'm brewing out of nothing, I'm just not finishing them, man.
What means finished to you for a deck list? Because for me, if I'm brewing a deck, I get too many cards and then I just fucking order them. And so like I'll get like 115,
Yeah.
120 cards and I just buy all of them. And then I'm cutting like 20 on the fly. And then I just have random shit that won't fit into anything else. And I'm like, hey, I'll use it someday, maybe. And then slap it in a drawer and never look at it again. But like,
Honestly,
that's my process. So like, where do you like land? Do you have to have the 100?
Dude, honestly, I think I need to do that.
Yeah.
Like I think that's my problem because I love pulling the cards into a Moxfield list and I hit like 70 cards and I'm like, this should be where I stop.
Yeah.
But I don't.
Yeah.
And I keep going. And now I have this bird list that has like 130 cards
With
in it.
no lands.
There's 20 lands.
Okay.
There's
all
20
right,
lands. There's 22 lands, 120 cards and 22 lands. So like, you know.
So you have like 40 cuts to make already.
Yeah, like 30 or 40 cuts that need to be made.
The most disheartening part of that for me is always the moment that I realize like I've got too many cards and it's not like a balanced selection. It's not a full meal there in the deck, you know. It's like oops, all synergy and no ramp and no card draw or something. And then I'm like, okay, so I need to cut and start adding things. At this point I get a lot of people being like, "Hey, what do you think about this deck list?" And it's always like, "Have you tagged this?" Because like that's the point that you get to. It's like I either need to start tagging this and like really figuring out, okay, what are the chunks that I'm missing? What are the like slots that I actually need to fill to complete this deck?
Yes.
Or I just need to not do that and just like get it and start tuning it, the Tony approach.
And I think like one of the problems that I'm having is like I used to really enjoy paring it down in Moxfield to 100 cards and then like play testing it.
Yeah.
And mulliganing hands like fucking crazy and like goldfishing the deck as much as I can to really, really tune it up. I don't know. With some decks, I just can't get to that point. I can't get it. Like the level of effort to bring it down to the tuned 100 so I can actually start the goldfishing just feels like a Herculean task that I can never accomplish. And maybe that's a sign that I just should order the cards and fucking do it in paper, you know?
Yeah, I think it is a sign of that.
Sometimes having 100 sleeves is like the best restriction for deck building where you're like, I'm going to sleeve it up. And I'll have to make cuts because I only have so many sleeves.
I think that's part of why I do it, because when I get there, I'm like, oh, it's much easier to cut when you have the cards for one reason or another. For me, anyway, because it's like all of a sudden I'm there and I'm like, well, that one just doesn't make it. I'm looking at the two cards and I'm like, putting it in a sleeve, and I'm like, that one just isn't good enough. It's cute. It's fucking cute. Now I have it
enough though,
but it's not going in the deck. It's going in the drawer. Like,
yeah. There are also some decks where like relentlessly play testing it just like solo doesn't really work. Like that works great for kind of combo focused decks. But if you're trying to brew anything more like interactive or combat based, like not everything can be goldfished effectively.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, this is really just like a combat deck. So it's sort of like your combat synergy, you know, it's sort of like there's some amount of goldfishing I could do just to see if I'm hitting curve. But then I also look at it and I'm like, you know, I look at my curve and I'm like, man, I have like 14 5-drops. Like,
yeah, that's gonna be pretty steep.
You're gonna drop a bunch of them just like that.
And like a lot of 6-drops and even too many 7-drops. I got 3 7-drops, man. Like that's a bit too much.
You pay one of them for 1 mana though.
That is true. I do pay one of them for 1 mana. Good old Safara Sky's Blade. But
I've been in a similar slump, I think, but I have been just like taking some of the old brews that I have, the like graveyard of stuff, and I've taken those out behind the barn and and fully put them down and fully disassembled them. So I may not have new lists or like reassembled things that I feel good about, but like Perry and Marholt, gone.
You have
fully
disassembled
gone.
staples, and that's almost better.
Do not exist. Yeah, they're gone. Their staples are now back in a collection. Some sleeves are opened up. Not that that's the real limiting factor. But
But still, I mean, it is good to have, though. Like, there's nothing worse than buying a couple new boxes of sleeves and then unsleeving like 4 decks and being like, well, now I have too many sleeves. Like, why did I do this?
Yeah.
I didn't need to buy those.
There's an element of like mental space for it too. It's like now I never need to evaluate whether or not a card makes sense in Marholt. Like as we're looking at new stuff. Like I can if I want to, but it's not like I'm looking at new sets coming out with that lens anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's another problem that I have, which is totally like the other side of the coin, which is that I have like so many lists that need to be put down that it's almost like too much for me to even deal with. Like I just need to sit down and start doing it. And it's probably because my collection is in disarray, as you guys saw recently when you came over. It's like Mike was like, you just have piles of cards in your closet. And I was like, yeah, I do. And then we went in my office and he's like, there are just cards scattered across the desk. And I was like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Like I have these 3 boxes that are like to be sorted, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know the experience, but it was jarring to walk in and see multiple rooms impacted by the great flood of cardboard.
Yeah, all my chaff and shit. And the real problem is that, like I said, I have some of these decks that are partially dismantled. And every once in a while I'll flip through them. Like my elemental deck, Horde of Notions. Still like 60% together and does not need to be.
No.
Unplayable. Would take a lot of effort to rebuild it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And those cards are just sitting in sleeves.
But when you pick it up, are you like, this is cool though?
I kind of am. Like it's a little memory lane action.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's not me at all. When I pick up those decks that are like in the graveyard already, I'm sifting through them for more cards to take out instead of just taking everything out. I'm like, someday, maybe.
Yeah, literally. I mean, that's why they get to that state, you know?
I've got at least probably 6 decks down here that are just like, I've got some decks where it's like, sure, I could just slot 3 more fucking lands in and like I could still play because it's not missing that much. But the amount that I have that are missing like 10 plus cards is high. Like, very high.
Those are ready to go. Just put them down. Put them out of their misery.
Yeah, I'm looking at them now.
It's hard, man.
Just start unsleeving. That gets you pretty far.
Yeah, that's the thing. I should just buy some boxes like you did and sort my shit, really.
I have some old shitty single 800 count boxes if you want a couple.
Hell yeah, man. Like, definitely. Honestly, one of the best things about the fact that we order tokens all the time to send out to the patrons is that I have like a bunch of these boxes that fit cards. For the most part, they're not quite the right size, but I just
small,
fill
though,
them with shit. It depends on the order. Like we've had a couple really big orders that come in a big ass box, but
huge orders.
Yeah, like when we ordered those like 12 CDH decks, like that was this massive long box.
Yeah, brick.
But yeah, I'm just realizing it with this list. I want to finish this list, and I intend to. I fully intend to, but I'm just seeing myself slow down, and I need to like sit with it, make cuts, and maybe just order cards and be done with it. Like it's not even an expensive list, you know? It's like $150. Like I can probably pare that down even more, maybe cap it at 100.
Like getting rid of the 5, 6, and 7 drops that you're just not gonna put in it. You just rip those out and then just fucking buy it, baby girl. Just fucking do it. Rip it.
I know. And like the expensive shit I already own too.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. It's like a Chroma's Will and like Swan Song, which I'm including because it's a bird card, you know?
Yeah, bullshit. It's because you're a fucking trash blue player.
Yeah, I mean, I'm putting Flare of Denial in too. That's not a bird card. I just want to counterspell shit. At first, I was like, everything has to be on bird theme. And then I was like, yeah, Dovin's Veto is fine.
It kind of sounds like the word dove, so you're fine.
I'll pronounce it that way.
Dovin's Veto.
Dovin's Veto. Oh, man.
Would you say having a bunch of unfinished lists, does Does that build up some level of salt for you?
Ooh, you know what, Mike? I think it does. I think it's low level salt, but it certainly is frustration.
Wait.
Huh?
What is salt, Sam?
Tony, thank you for asking. Deciding if I want to use my contractually obligated episode where I don't define salt.
It's definitely the one for it.
It's pretty overdue. It's pretty overdue.
You haven't done that in at least a month.
All right, well, I guess I'll just go fuck myself then.
Yeah, I haven't done that in a while. I haven't not defined salt in quite some time. We'll just keep it short, sweet, and to the salt. Salt is frustration in the game, as we like to say. It's anything that's going to get you mad or frustrated or pissed off in a game of Magic. From feeling deflated when someone counters your special synergy piece, all the way up to somebody like yelling at you in an LGS. There's a bunch of different things that are going to make you salty. And we talk about all of them here in the Howling Salt Mine so that we can learn from it and hopefully not be salty in a future game. As we like to say, it is an edumagicational podcast.
Indeed.
You've been loving the indeed lately, Tony. I've been hearing you've been popping that out all the time, man.
I feel like I just say it after Edumagicational now. Just to poke at your indeeds.
At my indeed at the end.
Yeah.
Well, should we jump into it, guys?
Let's
get on
in there.
Let's do it. Let's grab this first salty story. I'm going to grab one from the patrons.
Let's grab it.
All right. So this first one comes to us from our buddy Accidental TPK. Been a while since we had a TPK story on here. And this post is titled Tony's Worst Nightmare.
Oh, dear. I don't like the sound of that.
How many blue decks are going to be in this pod?
Cards in this.
A single blue deck. Ooh.
That's going to be like 3 fucking control decks and just bring me back to the beginning of our CDH days. Me trying to hard jam a Godo into 3 fucking control decks.
Dude. Yeah. Yep. Man, somebody was talking about that in the Discord the other day. They were talking about like beginner CDH decks. And I forget who it was, but someone was like, Godo's a good deck. And someone else was like, Godo's not a good beginner deck. Like Godo is a great deck because it's very straightforward to understand how it works. But to win with it, it is not a good beginner deck. you really got to pick your moment, especially in those all blue pods.
Yeah.
Anywho, let's figure out what your nightmare is. And the story goes, hello, crusty dicklings in chief. I have a quick rant for you. There's a guy I play Magic with at work sometimes who I will call Jack because he does jack shit every game he plays. Jack plays 4 decks to my knowledge. Shauku, Endbringer, single target removal typal. Zoncha, Sleeper Agent, where his goal is to only have Zoncha on any board. Uyo, Silent Prophet, Counterspell typal. And Linvala, Shield of Seagate, board wipe typal.
Oof.
God. Jack's games go about the same every time. He tries to win on a war of attrition, stopping everyone in their tracks without a real win con. I've never seen him win a game, and usually he is less than 4 lands a game, so he is just a body that you have to deal with. He will have enough mana to fuck up one person's strategy and then lose because he took out the ability to keep someone else at bay, or he will board wipe with no way to capitalize on it. In my most recent game with him, he was playing Linvala and just board wiped nonstop without his commander on board, so he couldn't give his creatures indestructible. When asked why he kept wiping the board without anything he could capitalize on, he said, I just want to do something this game. And he lost the game a few turns later.
Oh my God, Jack could definitely go fuck himself, and I understand why it's my nightmare.
Yeah.
Jack, if you ever listen to this, build some decks that are less annoying and buy your own dice, you dick. Sincerely, a concerned and pissed off citizen. Oh my God. So I'm reading this one straight out of the Discord this time. So I have the commanders that we talked about here. So let's rip through them. The first one is Shauku Endbringer, and this is the single target removal deck. This is a 5/5 vampire with flying that costs 5 colorless mana and 2 black mana, so 7 mana cost commander. Shauku Endbringer can't attack if there's another creature on the battlefield. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 3 life, and you can tap it and exile target creature and put a +1/+1 counter on Shauku. That's pretty mean. That's a pretty mean card.
If I saw somebody running
It's
that
so
in
dumb.
the fucking command zone, I literally be like, I don't want to play with you.
But it's 7 mana,
I
you know?
don't fucking care.
It's 7 mana. It's 7 mana and it gets a +1/+1 counter.
That's not the part I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about what that deck is going to be trying to do the whole fucking game. Oh my god. All right, so that's a great start.
So the next one is Zancha.
Zancha's like fine.
Yeah, Zancha's kind of classic, like a sort of classic commander to piss off your friends.
Yeah.
Zancha Sleeper Agent costs 1, a black and a red. It's a Phyrexian minion, and it's a 5/5. And the key text here says Zancha Sleeper Agent enters the battlefield under the control of an opponent of your choice. Zancha attacks each combat if able and can't attack its owner or planeswalkers its owner controls. So it's basically goated, but when it comes down to the 1v1, it still can't actually attack you. Then for 3 mana, there's an activated ability. 3 colorless mana, Zancha's controller loses 2 life, and you draw a card. Any player may activate this ability. Zancha is a great way to give somebody this really irritating creature that they have to attack your other opponents with, and everybody can just melt your face and draw cards. It's like a weird group hug, group slug kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of like the original Slicer.
Yeah, it kind of is the OG.
I guess Corona False God is maybe the OG on it, but this one's kind of the secondary.
Yep.
These decks tend to do a similar thing though, where they're like wiping the board a bunch and or up to like 4 toughness wipes. So they just like wipe most things all the time and just like leave Zancha out there and like so it's doing a similar type of thing, which I don't like, but I feel like this usually happens faster.
Yeah.
Like the writing comes on the walls. Usually the person that has this on just got like fucking doubling cube bullshit going on, and they just start like, you know, creating fuckloads of mana that they just like kill people with.
Dumping in it.
Yeah. So it's like it ends usually pretty quickly. But after your 3rd board wipe of the game, you're usually like, go fuck yourself, Dr. Black.
Dr. Black. Does Dr. Black have a deck like
I'm pretty
this?
sure it was him that I played a game with, and he just kept doing it over and over again.
It's so
Either
good,
he was
dude.
in the game or he had the Zancha. I thought he had the Zancha, but
That's fucking great, man. And yeah, I think you're right, because it says the Zancha Sleeper Agent deck where the goal is to only have Zancha on any board.
yeah.
So, you know, you're doing Toxic Deluge for 4.
Yeah.
So Zancha stays alive, everything else dies. Single target remove to clean things up.
Eat the ass meat for 4, you know.
Yeah, eat the ass meat for 4. The meat hook massacre, if people don't know. Then the next one is Uyo Silent Prophet. There's a counter spell focused deck. This is a commander that costs 4 and 2 blue. Legendary creature Moonfolk Wizard, flying, and it's a 4/4, and it has an activated ability: 2 colorless mana, return 2 lands you control to their owner's hand, copy target instant and sorcery. You may choose new targets for the copy.
Doesn't Pat have one of these?
I think Pat does have a Patron of the Moon deck, I believe, which has very similar vibes.
Anyway, fuck this blue bullshit.
Yeah, I think that's it, right? Or it's not a zombie.
It's not. He had some other one that did stuff with lands and was like a Moonfolk fucking something.
The other Moonfolk one.
Yeah, it is Patron of the Moon. Patron of the Moon is 1 mana, put up to 2 land cards from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. So Patron of the Moon is kind of like the other half of this, where like you return lands and then you put the lands back out and back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah. And then what was the last one? Was there one more deck or that was it?
Yeah, there's one more. I mean, that one doesn't seem like too crazy with a bunch of counter spells. Like, I guess you can double up on your counter spells, or maybe have like some value instants and sorceries you're casting and just copy them. But it doesn't scream counter spell deck, you know?
It just is blue, so you can.
It just is blue.
If I know anything about Jack, I feel like Jack was probably loading the bitch up with like, you know, as many counter spells based on like what he was doing with the other decks. Like, it would not surprise me if he was like, oh, let me just have a bunch of fucking counter spells in here.
I mean, it is described as counterspell typal, so I think he has
Makes
loaded it
sense
up that way.
So still fuck Jack.
And then the last one is Linvala, Shield of Seagate. Costs 1, a white and a blue. Legendary creature, Angel Wizard with flying, and it's a 3/3. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, choose target non-land permanent an opponent controls. Until your next turn, it can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. Sacrifice Linvala, choose hexproof or indestructible, creatures you control gain that ability until the end of turn.
Sacrifice piece is a separate ability from the effectively detaining ability.
Yes. In case I read that too fast.
Yeah. Sam, just put a take my comment out and just put a pause.
I'll just edit a breath.
Like, honestly.
Here, wait, let me put a. Okay, now I'll take that breath and I'll put that in earlier. Basically, I the idea obviously is that you get a bunch of creatures out, you have this detain effect, and then you are board wiping, sacking Linvala, saving your own shit, breaking parity that way, and pushing for a win.
Except Jack doesn't do it that way.
Jack just wanted to feel something, dude. He just wanted to feel something.
Want to impact the game.
All right, so Tony, how do you feel about this?
I feel like Jack fucking sucks. And I would not want to play games with Jack.
Yeah.
And if you listen to this, Jack, change the fucking decks that you play. I don't know what to tell you, bro. No one's going to want to play with this. Like, I see why Accidental TPK is saying it's my worst nightmare, because he's been doing all these things that, like, clearly he gets off to controlling other people's stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And there's some people that just like that. But you can't just do that. You must win the game. You can't just draw the fucking thing out and be like, oh yeah, I'm just removing a bunch of things. Isn't this fun, guys? Like, no, I'm gonna fucking hate you. Like, and not in a friendly haha way. I'm just gonna fucking hate you, Jack. Like, so this definitely makes me salty. I can tell you that much.
You can't win by just board wiping over and over and over again. Like, at least Zancha seems to have a win con, right?
Well, because it's stapled to the fucking card. Pay mana. Like,
you're at least melting your opponents and dealing some damage. Hopefully, eventually.
Yeah.
I think the other egregious thing here is it sounds like the decks are poorly built.
Yeah.
Which is like
that is the thing.
It's almost even worse. Like, if I was playing against a deck that was board wiping, like this Linvala deck, if I was playing against this Linvala deck that's board wiping all the time, but also breaking parity and pushing for a win because they're able to cast a bunch of stuff out and ramp appropriately and gain the value. Yeah, that's annoying, but the game's going to end. But if you only get 4 lands down and you just keep hitting like a Wrath of God and all of your other like 3 and 4 cost wipes, then why'd you make this? Why'd you make this deck?
Yeah.
Board wipe typal, counterspell typal, and single target removal typal decks. Those are all decks where the primary thing that you're describing is a way to not lose the game. Like, those are all things that you do to not lose, which is generally only good when it buys you enough time to win. Best defense is a good offense, right? You're just like rejecting that notion. You're like, well, okay, but I'm just going to play really good defense and somehow out of that I'll win the game. It's like, no, you gotta take the actions that are going to get you in the lead and the advantage. All of those pieces are just ways of like
hissing
stopping someone
off.
else if they're really going to get ahead of you in a way that you can't outpace.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those types of like attrition win cons really only work, one, if you can push beyond it, like drain your opponents of their resources and then push with your own win. Go Super Saiyan 3.
Yes, I could know, but I had to.
Or it's something where, as unpleasant as it is like a true stacks lock, and you're like, nothing can happen now. The game does have to end, where it's like, it's a stacks lock and I have a 1/1 flyer and no one else has anything. The game is inherently going to end eventually. We can shortcut this and just stop right now. But that's like,
even then you can't kill everyone, right? If you have a 1/1 flyer, everybody draws 7 cards, depending upon where things are at. You wouldn't have enough turns if like.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. You might just deck yourself before you kill everyone. a 2/2 flyer. A 2/2 flyer is what I meant.
That makes it better. Just for any of those people out there listening who are like, oh, I want to now build a deck that's going to do a lock and have a 1/1 flyer out there. Go fuck yourself.
Oh, man.
What do we think about the salt rating here on this one? Fuck this guy. It's high.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Jack sucks. Yeah. Jack is the person I don't want at my table.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like Jack is either giving you a very unpleasant play experience or he's doing nothing. And I don't want either of those, man. I don't want to play a 3-player game with a 4th player just sitting there as like a paperweight.
Yeah.
And I also don't want to play a game where someone is just fucking up my shit, especially with the single target removal themed deck. Like that is just made to hose one person. That's not going to be fun.
Yeah. I think what also makes this worse is like it's pointed out that Jack is called Jack because he does jack shit and like normally just doesn't even actually do it. I hate you and you're not even doing your thing. Like I don't want to play with you and it sounds like you're not even actually executing on the thing you want to do. So it's like I'm not going to be the only one, man. That's all I'm going to say. Like I think it's okay to like these horrible things, but you gotta at least put fucking win cons in there too. You gotta focus on like the whole story. Otherwise, no one's gonna want to play with you ever.
Facts.
But I already don't want to play with you. So
yeah. I always find it interesting when these stories are about a player and not like a situation or a game or something. Like usually they're like these game actions happened and I got grumpy. This is like this guy just makes me mad. Consistently, just how they play doesn't work for me, which yeah, I don't know how you address that one. That one you do need like some kind of conversation, I feel like, or we can bust out the tried and true, like play with each other's lists or something so that you can try to get him to do something in a game. But it could be that his deck building ethos kind of matches up with his play pattern, and no matter what deck you give this person, they're going to do the same thing. Like some people are just looking for the ways to stop other people from winning. Like that's what their eye is catching all the time when they're like looking for lines, when they're evaluating the board. What they're evaluating is like, who's closest to winning? How do I stop them? Instead of how do I get myself to be the closest to winning?
What an interesting thought. I've never thought that. I only think about myself and how I can get closer to winning.
Yeah, exactly. You are truly emblematic. You really are truly emblematic of like the difference of that.
Yeah.
I do think everybody is aiming for being the closest to winning.
Yeah.
But some people's approaches to that are by pushing themselves forward across the finish line.
Yeah.
Even further beyond.
Right. Even further beyond. Other people's approaches are like shooting the other runners in the race in the kneecaps to try and slow them down. And then there's like some intermediate step where you're just like throwing some elbows here and there to try and like shoulder yourself ahead. You want to be somewhere in the shouldering zone if you're looking for a balanced experience.
But like Jack has just laid down glue on every lane.
Right. Yeah. His own lane.
Or just
his own lane included.
Yeah.
He's glued up every lane. Which doesn't actually help you get
because he's still behind everyone, but like he's laid it down.
Hey, he just wanted to do something that game, you know? He just wanted to be included. I think that's the worst too, is that like sometimes when your deck is, because I've been here before, I think a lot of people have been here before, when your deck is performing so poorly, you just want to have some impact on the game. You just want to be doing something. But like if that one impact is just a board wipe or a couple board wipes, like that sucks. That's not fun.
We played a game yesterday where I was really excited because I died first in a CEDH game. But while I was alive, I had exiled some people's win cons. And I like got up, got some water, came back after I had been dead for a little while. And people were like complaining about the fact that their win cons were exiled. And I was like, hey, at least I had an impact. So like, sometimes you do just want to, feel something.
Which you did audibly say as well, which is great.
I did. I couldn't even hold myself back. Dude. I did say it out loud.
Hell yeah. A little gloating ain't so bad.
Like, I'm so glad about this. Every once in a while, here and there.
Let us move away from the salt onto something new.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm prepared.
A new bride, a new flavor, a new anything.
This one comes to us from, this is the name they put that they want me to read. As a finishing touch, God created the Dutch.
What?
That's the name.
What?
That's the name they wanted me to read.
Huh.
So we'll just call this person the Flying Dutchman. And the post is titled, Never Playing Kaalia Again. Hello, Krusty Dicklings. Been binge listening to you guys for the last couple of weeks. Thanks for the banter. Kept me awake on my drive to France and back again last weekend. Here's a story of when I got salty. We have a play group that tries to get together once a month to play some Magic. As we were talking about our decks and when we started playing Magic, I told them that I had the first 4 Commander decks back when they released in 2011, but never actually got to play them because my playgroup decided to stop playing after we bought them. Tyler asked if I would like to bring my Kaalia deck to a game night because he wanted to see that deck get played. I agreed, but also said that it was straight out of the box precon with hardly any upgrades and would not be as tuned as the decks they normally play. He said that wasn't a problem.
It's not a problem.
Yeah, he's like,
see where this is headed, but hey, that's not a problem.
You're gonna play a shitty deck? No problem here, dude. Yeah, fucking bring it, man.
Yeah, we won't mind. Yeah, we won't mind.
That's fine. So next time I brought my Kaalia deck, and oh boy, did it suck. I kept a hand with 2 colors of mana and only 3 mana in total, but missing that black mana. After 6 turns, still no mana, at least nothing that looked like a swamp. Others were popping off and establishing a board state. And then my friend Dave offered me a deal where we were both allowed to look up our best card out of our decks and put it into our hands. I forgot the name of the spell, but it was in his Brina deck. Okay. This is scheming symmetry. It goes to top of deck, but
for a second I thought they were literally just like, we're doing so poorly.
Me too.
Why don't the 2 of us make a deal that we can just search our decks for a card?
Yeah, I thought so
and
too.
Put it in our hand to help.
So too.
So we don't do jack shit.
Just get your best card.
Yeah, I've heard people doing that for lands, but what if we both just went and got our best card?
Our best fucking card. Oh, man. Yeah, so it must have been like Scheming Symmetry or something similar. Yeah. If people don't know, Scheming Symmetry is a tutor where you and an opponent both tutor, and that one goes to top of deck, so who knows. So finally, next turn, I would be able to play a swamp and get Kaalia on the board and maybe do something.
I hope that on a Scheming Symmetry, he found a swamp.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's the implication. I think that's the implication here. Then it was Tyler's turn, the one who asked me to play Kaalia. He decided now was a good time to take me out. So yes, I got salty, packed up Kaalia, put her in her box, and went home. Kaalia got transferred from her nice deck box into the plastic Kaalia box that came in the precon. I haven't had the heart to take her apart, but I'm not planning on playing her either. I talked about it with Tyler, and all is good now, but that was the moment I got really salty and left for home, as I didn't want to sit there for another 2 hours as they finished their game. Keep up the banter, guys. The Flying Dutchman.
Yeah. Thank you for the story. Oof.
Yeah, you got bullied, I think. I
think
you just got bullied.
Not full on bullied. No.
You know, you're not getting like your lunch money taken, but someone gave you a wedgie. Someone put a kick me sign on your back.
What are you saying? I mean,
someone put a kick me sign on your back.
This guy got killed on what, turn 9?
Yeah.
turn 7, somewhere between turn 7. Like
probably turn 7 or 8. Probably
yeah, okay. But the problem is he was playing an unupgraded old ass motherfucking precon.
Says who? How is that the problem?
Says no, hang on.
We're saying that's the problem, Mike.
It's because those were meant to win on turn like fucking 15. Like those things were like old and bad. Like they took a while to get going. Like there's good shit in them and everything, but it's like there's a struggle. Him not hitting the lands, I think is like a little rough. But like if all these other decks are gonna win on turn 6 or 7, like in that range, and you're more at like double that pace, you were never gonna do anything. So I don't think they bullied him, but like
I'm just legitimately shocked that Sam in particular, Mr. like Mulligan better, isn't just on the Dutchman here. Like, is that not the problem? They kept a land with 2 of the colors and not even enough mana to play their commander. Like,
but they
even
had
shy of missing
mana.
The color.
Like, what were they supposed to have 4 mana in their opening fucking hand?
You're supposed to have a path to playing your win conditions.
That is true. You're correct, Mike. You brought me back down to earth. I appreciate it. I was flying up there with Kaalia and the Dutchman, and now I am grounded. Yeah, I mean that's a really good point. I will say, I'm looking at the deck list. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that too.
But it does have 38 lands. So
shuffle better too.
A little bit higher than your typical curve for lands. Most people are on like 36 in your classic deck. I will also say it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, only 6 pieces of ramp in the whole deck. And 3 of them are signets. 1 is Soul Ring, 1's a Dark Steel Ingot, and 1 is Armillary Sphere. That classic.
I've seen that card so many fucking times because I feel like it's been reprinted a billion times. It's been in like so many of the goddamn precons. I have no fucking clue what it does. All I know is I throw it out every time I see it.
It's like an ancient commander card, 2-mana artifact, pay 2, tap and sack it, search your library for up to 2 basic lands, reveal them, put them in your hand. So that would have saved the day. But I mean, you're right, Mike. I think with this kind of deck, you do need to mulligan to at least 2 colors and like ramp or some kind of plan to at least play something. But again, the problem with the list is it has a ridiculous curve. Like half the deck is above. I know that's the whole point, but that's like, it's hard to pivot if you don't get Kaalia out.
So you better keep a hand that can at least get Kaalia out. That's the piece I'm stuck on. That's the piece that I'm stuck on, right? Like, and maybe you just like don't know what the list is, and like it's a precon, so ideally it should be kind of like a smooth experience. Like precons should have a somewhat straightforward game plan, and this requires like a little bit of kind of knowledge on like how you're going to try and navigate the plan for it. I don't think it matters that these other players were playing like slightly higher power stuff. For all we know, the story could involve 3 other people playing precons. Like at this point, it wouldn't be shocking. Sure. Turn 6, you finally play your commander, and turn 7, someone sees you with a Kaalia out, decides you're the threat, and kills you. That's not a shocking thing. Like that's not crazy.
Well, I don't even think they got the Kaalia out. Just like point of order, they tutored for the swamp.
That would let
tutored for the swamp,
That's
and then
true.
They died. So, but I do agree. It's like, okay, you just tutored for the best card in your deck, which happened to be
a swamp in this scenario.
So be it that it's a swamp,
which happens to be a powerful swamp, but.
Though really, if they were hurting on lands that badly, they probably should have grabbed the armillary sphere.
Yeah. Honestly, you'd hit that drop. It wouldn't give you a Kaalia on the next turn, but it would still put in some work. Man, it's a trip to look at these old deck lists for this 2011 deck.
Dragon Whelp. They were putting Furnace and Dragon Whelp in precons. They're putting 2/2 flyers for 4. You're not even supposed to take those in limited.
A 2/2 flyer for 4 that's limited on red mana to pump it up in a 3-color deck with like all tap lands.
And then 1 copy of that wasn't enough, so they put a second one in.
And then it has all 3 of the vows in that color. Like this is a theme where it was like, ooh, the political play of goading an opponent's creature, or not even just like powering up an opponent's creature. The thing I'm looking at these, they don't even goad the creature. They don't even make it attack. It just can't attack you.
Yeah.
These are really bad. Vow of Duty, Vow of Lightning, Vow of Malice. Like these are pretty bad cards, man. It's a shockingly shitty list.
The reason they don't goad is so that they can flex as a piece for your creatures as well.
Yes, you can power up your own shit, but man, this is a trip to look at this. Just the ramp package, the land is so bad. It's like all the bounce lands,
that's the thing.
Every
and
tap
it's
land.
A fucking 3-color deck.
Yeah.
Like the mana bases in those were so fucking bad.
They're truly terrible. Like fucking, there's a Rupture Spire in here, dude. Comes in tapped. You sack it unless you pay 1, and then it taps for any color. It's like you have to pay 1 mana to play a tapped rainbow land. That sucks. That card sucks.
Yeah.
Oh man,
it's interesting because they really have come a long way from what they were.
God.
To what they are.
It's crazy. Yeah. Like I have this precon. I remember it. I think you had it too, Tony.
I didn't have this precon. I built my own.
Oh yeah, you built your own Kaalia.
But the list was real bad at the start. But it changed. I think I've talked about this in the past. I literally ran Bad Moon, I think it was, which gives your creatures +1/+1. I think it gives your black creatures +1/+1.
Oh yeah.
Because I lived in a meta where like I was coming off of 60 card decks where like a 2/2 was easy to remove because you do like 2 damage to it. Like the removal I was accustomed to was literally like burn damage. So I was like, I got to make my Kaalia big so that nobody can destroy me.
Right.
So I ran a bunch of fucking anthems and Kaalia, and then
Honor of the Pure was
like
broken for us. It was like, ooh, all the white creatures get +1/+1. And you're like, Bad Moon. It's just basically another copy. Let's run them both, dude.
Yeah.
Can you imagine getting them both
pure
now?
Bad
Plus two.
I might have run Glorious Anthem too. I don't remember.
Oh, it's so bad, dude.
What do we think about the salt rating here on this one?
It's high enough, right? You had an abysmal experience where you didn't get to play any good cards and then you got killed and then you left and went home. Like, that's not a pleasant time.
Yeah.
Well, when you put it like that, it does sound like it was an abysmal time.
That's pretty bad. That's not very fun.
When you sum it up like that.
I don't think I'm helping by then calling you out and being like, maybe Mulligan better. But like it is something to consider. Like you got to know what your deck's plan is. And if being stuck on 3 completely handicaps your deck, account for that and organize around for it. And if you're playing a deck that you perceive as like lower power than everybody, you have to be extra critical about the hands that you're keeping and more willing to mulligan, because you can't compete with just your your C tier hand.
Yeah. I think it's a fair point that you made earlier that like this is what the deck do.
Yeah.
It gets Kaalia out and then it slaps out these high powered things. So like if that means you mulligan 2 or 3 times to make sure you have 4 in your hand, which is maybe not what like a typical deck would care about or do, like maybe that is what you need to do. Because that is the game plan of this particular deck, right?
Yeah.
There aren't many hands in this precon that are better than like 4 lands and a thing that you can drop out off of Kaalia.
Yeah.
Throw Mother of Runes in there and you're like a happy camper.
Yeah. Is Mother of Runes in the list?
Mother of Runes is in the list.
It is the only 1-drop
card
creature. It's the only 1-drop creature.
Damn.
Yeah.
It's just one of 4 1-drops in the entire deck.
Nice. What a fucking deck.
Yeah, that's truly awful.
Insane. An insane.
Yeah,
list.
and one of the 1-drops is Earthquake, which is X and 1. Yeah, I agree with you guys where you're at with the saltier. I mean, clearly it's salty. Clearly this was an unpleasant experience. I do think there is also this salty element of your friend telling you to bring this deck so they can see it in action, specifically so they can see what it does. I've never seen Kaalia before. You should bring it. You should play it. And then when you're about to play Kaalia, they're like, yeah, actually, I don't actually care about seeing Kaalia.
Yeah, I'm actually going to kill you.
I'm going to fucking kill you
At
now.
that point, they're like, I've seen enough. I'll just fucking end it now.
Oh, so this deck does nothing? All right.
It's the theme of the episode.
Yeah. Decks that do nothing. Oh, shit. Yeah. All right.
Well,
you guys ready for another salty story?
Yeah, let's round this bitch out.
Let's do it. Let me grab one randomly from my little bag of tricks here.
There are only 23 cards in the Kaalia precon that you can even play for 3 mana.
That's so bad, dude.
How many of those 23 can you play without black mana?
Good question. Like 19, still most of them.
All right, I got another one here, and this one comes to us from our buddy Dillboy from Canada.
Hi, Dillboy.
What's up, Dillboy?
Is it like the spice dill? D-I-L-L? Herb?
It's D-Y-L. D-Y-L.
Deal.
Deal boy.
Deal boy.
Deal boy. Deal boy from Canada. And this post is titled Proximus Waifus.
Oh boy. Where is this going?
That's a waifu. Licks teeth. It's morbid time.
Oh.
That's a little callback for the diehards out there. And the story goes, hey, y'all, been listening for the past few months and have been having a great time hearing the myriad of salty scenarios. Here's the wildest story that's happened to me so far in my time as a Commander player. Apologies in advance for the sparse game details, but I'm bad at remembering that sort of thing. This game, however, stuck in my mind for a few reasons that should become apparent soon. Yeah, I feel like this has nothing to do with the game, but just based on that title. We have Commander nights at our local board game cafe every Saturday, and the group is pretty great. We don't have many players, so sometimes we end up in only 1 pod or in 2 pods of 3, depending on the week. One day, a guy sees us playing Magic and asks if we're here every week. I say that we are and that he's welcome to join. He seems excited, saying he's new to town and had been looking for a place to play. Fast forward a week or 2 later, new guy, we'll call him Deku, shows up decked out with the weebiest loadout you've ever seen, complete with a well-worn My Hero Academia t-shirt and playmat emblazoned with anime girls in bikinis.
Hey.
There it is.
Nah.
So we get the Deku MHA reference. Hey, I read My Hero Academia. It's a pretty good manga, but anime girls bikinis, I think we've crossed a line. Hey, I was a teenage weeaboo once, so I won't judge, even though he's probably in his late 20s / early 30s.
Oof.
He sets down a deck, and immediately I notice Link from Zelda Breath of the Wild sitting on top. Sure enough, proxy deck player. Immediate red flags, but I'm not big on conflict and figured I'd let it play out and see. The first game went off without incident. I don't remember the specifics of who was playing who. It wasn't the main event regardless. The game ends. The fourth player leaves to join another pod. Fuck you, fourth player. We didn't want you here anyways. And we're left with just me, my friend Jan, and Deku. We decide to start up another game as all the other pods are in full swing with no end in sight. I'm on Celestial Toymaker. Jan is on the 14th Doctor, and Deku pulls out Sauron, the Dark Lord, flavored to an anime I've never heard of. Deku said it was one of his favorites of all time. Pause. This is a recent story. Doctor Who shit, this is like, fairly recent.
Yeah,
so
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
But how dare you reflavor the fucking Lord of the Rings set? Like,
yeah, that's already got enough flavor.
More than enough flavor there.
But it's the best anime of all time, dude. So probably One Piece, I think we can assume. So it begins. Fairly standard first turns from what I can remember. That all changed when he casually dropped an anime-themed Black Lotus and got his commander out on turn 3. Okay. The next few turns...
I guess I'll let the story go. But
should we let it ride?
Well, would you let that happen?
No, that card is banned.
Oh, is it? It is banned.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Okay. Black Lotus is banned.
Sick. So then I wouldn't let it happen. I'd just be like, no.
Yes. It would get the exact same reaction as when you tried to resolve Grizzlebrand or when Sam tried to resolve Tinker. Absolute ridicule.
That's not true, because I tried to resolve Grizzlebrand. You guys were like, man, that's banned. And then we let Sam resolve Tinker a couple times before we were like, isn't that banned?
No, I don't think I ever got to resolve Tinker.
You definitely resolved it at least once. Maybe Mike wasn't there for that game, but I'm telling you, you resolved that at least once.
Anyways.
Continue. We don't let banned cards get played. It's the moral of the story here.
I will say, I do wonder if maybe it was a Jeweled Lotus because it cast the commander, but who knows? Let's just let it ride. Either way, commander comes out on turn 3. Okay. The next few turns proceeded. He dropped 2 Nazguls and a Sheoldred the Apocalypse, and my friend and I were fighting to keep his board state from running away. I cast a This Is How It Ends to shuffle Sheoldred back into his deck. And inexplicably, he lets me shuffle one of his Nazgul into his deck rather than take the 5 damage, even though he had plenty of life, which was my first indicator that something was off in his gameplay. I played a few other removals to get rid of other Nazgul and his commander, sacrificing mine to do so. Board state dismantled, he seemed overall kind of disinterested in the rest of the game, despite the fact that Sheoldred showed up again not 3 turns later. And I was a little puzzled that a janky Dr. Typal deck and my flavor-forward minigames deck were able to best the budgetless EDH rec-fueled nightmare, even if it was a 3-player game. I won the game in the end. The night was over with, I think, minimal salt on either side. The kicker to all of this is what I learned about this player later on. He mostly plays Yu-Gi-Oh!, but I'm guessing is getting into Magic mostly because there's more of a scene for it here in town. But to keep it anime-themed, and pretty much all of his decks are proxies. 2, he didn't even know what a Black Lotus was or why it was considered so powerful. He just needed a flower to put in his deck, and I guess Googled what a good flower-themed card was to add. Crazy that he made his whole proxy deck with 3 super strong cards and didn't even know how strong they were. Whack. Keep the salt coming, Dillboy from Canada. I must say, that took a turn in a direction that I did not anticipate. I thought this was going to be about cringy anime shit.
Yeah,
and how
me too.
It made people uncomfortable, which, like, that is in there, but not fully in there.
Yeah, it's sort of actually hand waved away.
Yeah, it really is.
Which is fine, but I just want to call out, like, we get stories like this sometimes, and the amount of acceptance is, in some ways nice and in some ways concerning. Like, you're always entitled to not have to play in environments where you're, like, finding things uncomfortable. play mats or card art or like anything like that. Like, you don't need to be subjecting yourself to like really uncomfortable play experiences just because that's what someone wants to bring to a table. So kind of disclaimer on that note. That aside, like if someone has some art on something that they think is nice and it doesn't bother you, then whatever. To each their own is kind of true in this case.
As long as it's legible.
As long as it's legible and as long as it's like frankly appropriate, just always remember like you're in a public space. It can't be like truly, problematic.
Yeah, I mean, you can see some weird shit on proxies. Like we have seen some fucking strange, very not safe for work shit on like proxy fetch lands. Back when we first started printing proxies, we were like, what the fuck? Who designed
Who's
these?
doing this?
Like someone put effort into these, and that is almost weirder than the fact that they even exist. So yeah, there's some fucking strange shit out there. I totally agree with what Mike is saying, and I'm glad you said it. Like if someone is busting out some really uncomfortable proxies, uncomfortable playmats, there are kids in the store, like feel empowered to say something or talk to the store owner if it's incredibly uncomfortable or if you don't want to have that conflict.
But also if it's not that bad and it's a proxy, I feel like that's okay too.
Yeah.
But it can't be a banned card. So it's still like
it does have to be a legal card.
Maybe questionable whether or not it was jeweled lotus maybe instead of black lotus, but like needs to be legal.
Again, I do wonder if it is a jeweled lotus.
That touches on legibility, right? Like if it's been played and you don't know and there's like a question around that, then that means it wasn't legible enough. Like you can put other art on it, but it should like say fucking jeweled motherfucking lotus on it. Like it should say that somewhere.
Yes. Right? I do just want to read one card here just for purposes of understanding the story, and this is how it ends, which is this instant. Costs 3 and a black. Target creature's owner shuffles it into their library, then faces a villainous choice. Ooh. They lose 5 life, or they shuffle another creature they own into their library. Okay. I didn't fully get that as we were going through it. Every once in a while we talk about like an LGS cryptid or something like that. Just kind of like someone who comes through your life and you're like, that was a weird experience. I'm not salty, but the vibes were odd.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For this person to not really know that Shieldred is an amazing card, and like when it gets removed, just be like, all right. It seemed like they were nonplussed with the removal of Shieldred, not because they were like super chill, but because they just didn't know how busted that card was. And I think maybe sometimes that kind of stuff can happen when you're just straight up proxying list because you don't see that it's like a $70 card.
True. I do think it's interesting that they think this is like a Yu-Gi-Oh player that's just kind of sliding in to find where the community is, the card gaming community in the area is. It's pretty interesting. I'm glad that they're finding spaces where people will play with them, and hopefully like that's still an enjoyable experience for them. But it does sound like they're kind of checking out partway through games and maybe not loving it. So
yeah.
I'm glad they at least proxied things, honestly, instead of investing a bunch of money into a format and a game they're not even confident they're going to like.
It kind of feels like they may not even like really get the vibe of Commander, of like the give and take and all that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, clearly they don't get like the power level stuff or even card legality potentially. But the fact that like you can have, like this person said, a janky doctor deck and like a mini games deck that's just very flavorful can stomp a deck that has some like pretty powerful spice in it. Maybe it's a combination of new player, maybe it's a combination of somebody who just isn't really familiar with Magic and not really familiar with how to like play those cards and execute and like squeeze the value out of those cards. But it's a little bit of both.
Also, budgetless decks can be bad.
Exactly.
Like you can run a jeweled lotus and you can run a black lotus and still build a bad deck.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's like a Nazgul like kind of themed deck, like there's a ceiling on that a little bit. Like the thing you're trying to do is I'm not throwing shade at it. I'm just saying that the play pattern of it is like somewhat more linear compared to things that are gonna like just go insane. Like
Yeah.
you're playing a Nazgul and you're getting counters on each of your things, right? And then
throwing
tempted
shade
once.
at my fucking Frodo deck.
Yeah, that's because your
Yeah,
Frodo deck
bullshit.
is bad. Speaking of examples of budgetless
Of
decks
limitless
being
power
shitty,
of greed.
Exactly. And like there is a ceiling on that strategy. And even if you were a hobbit like Frodo, you would still have to like hunch down to walk under that ceiling because the ceiling's so low because the strategy is shit.
yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Kind of understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's why you lose to it all the time.
We never lose to the Nazgul. We lose to you just beaming us with Frodo. The Nazgul, in fact, I don't even know if I've ever seen you play Nazgul in that
The
list.
Nazgul actually slow you down. Every time you resolve a Nazgul, it's one turn farther until we get beamed by Frodo.
Yeah. It's just a Voltron deck, and you play Nazgul
With 9 dead
sometimes.
cards.
Yeah, but if I were to ever get them all out at the same time, it would be so great.
Yeah, it would be cool. It would be cool, man. It would definitely be cool. I want to do a little rant on proxy decks real quick. Like, I get it. If you want to build these flavorful decks, if you want to like fully proxy them out with like interesting art and stuff like that, you can. But sometimes those decks can be really clunky to play against, and honestly, to play yourself. Like, I remember when we were first getting into CDH, I bought this Tim Najeska deck. I'm sure I've said this before. And I picked all the cool alternate arts from the proxy website for the deck. And then I was playing it, and I just can't glance at my hand and know the cards that I have. I have to be like, what the fuck is this? Oh, it's a soul ring with a weird art for some
Probably
reason.
the only thing you knew was deflecting SWAT with Piccolo swatting that special beam cannon.
Literally, dude. And there was like a Jeska's Will that was really cool. And everything else was just some like random bullshit that I was like, what is this card? Oh, it's a Douthie Voidwalker.
Yeah. Well, what do we think about the salt rating here on this one?
To me, this is honestly pretty low salt. If someone plays an illegal card, I'm going to say something. And, you know, maybe this was a jeweled lotus and this person like ramped like crazy. But at the end of the game, I don't know if I'd really feel salt. I think I just feel a little like confused.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think this is about legibility of cards and a reasonably low salt rating.
Yeah.
I think new-ish players, like I think people coming in from other card games will grasp some of the rule parts of Magic pretty rapidly and then not start to get some of the like strategy parts of it for a while because they're so different. Like Yu-Gi-Oh is such like a explosive, very like combo-y format. I'm pretty sure like people have talked about how it's a lot of like winning turn 1 and things like that.
I play Pot of Greed and draw 3 cards or some amount of cards.
What it do, Yugi? Exactly.
That's what it do, Yugi.
But
that's what it do.
So like you might have those skills as a card game player to know like, okay, I can go look up a deck list. I can proxy it. I can get these cards. I know the sequence of like how to play a card, of how to tap mana, of like how to get things done. But I don't necessarily know like that the Shouldered is valuable or how to sequence my turns to get the most effect out of the cards that I'm playing, things like that. So I think it's just one of those cases, and I'm glad they're getting games in and figuring it out. It's a bummer that they're getting disengaged when they like fall off of being able to win, rather than kind of like trying to consider of what they could have done differently in order to like remain in the game. But also an element of like, if you're in a 3-player game and the other 2 people start ganging up on you, like it's a very natural reaction to disengage in the face of that anyway.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Mike. Like, we didn't really even talk about the fact that 3-player games are just imbalanced in general. You know, we say this a lot, but it's very easy in a 3-player game to have one person overextend, the other 2 agree to smack him back down, and then it ends up kind of being like a 1v1 with the 2 that are remaining. Like, that's a pretty typical pattern with 3-player games. And if this person played Black Lotus, Jeweled Lotus, whatever, they accelerated their commander out so quickly, it's going to put a huge spotlight on you. And especially if you're not familiar with like the social dynamics of a commander game and how that is, you may not realize that you're fully overextending and drawing a shit ton of attention to yourself with between like the early commander and dropping a Shieldred. You know, your opponents are going to panic and do everything they can to dismantle your board. And then you're going to kind of be left with nothing. And that can feel bad.
Yeah,
for
sure.
And you might not even really realize like why you've been, like you're saying, Sam, like that's the worst part, is you don't even realize why you've been targeted like that.
Yeah. Well, is it that time of the week, Sam?
Let me check, Tony. It is that time of the week.
Oh, baby, well, lay it on me. What time is it?
It's the time of the week that comes every week.
Every motherfucking week.
It's the time of the week where we say, Mike.
Mike.
Yeah.
What's the salty card of the week?
The salty card of the week this week is
Salty, you know you're salty. You got to be salty. You know the feeling of salt when you're talking to me. You see right through me. You got the feeling of salt.
Nice, short, sweet, and to the salt. That was a salty song request of Woman by Wolf Mother from our patron, The Crimson Chariot. Thanks, dude. And he gave me some of those lyrics, and it'll sound much better with music.
Honestly, I thought it was kind of a bop, as it was.
Hey, thank you, dude. I appreciate that. You know, hey, I mean, actually, it sounds pretty fucking good. Normally,
I mean, don't get carried away. Settle down. But
actually, I think it sounded really good.
well, thanks, Sam. That was a lovely salty song of the week.
You're welcome, Mike.
The salty card of the week this week is Mana Vortex.
Fuck is that?
sounds like some blue bullshit.
It does sound like some blue bullshit.
Tony's got it on lock. It is 1 and 2 blue for an enchantment. Each player who controls a land sacrifices 1 land during his or her upkeep. If at any time there are no lands in play, Mana Vortex is destroyed. If you do not sacrifice a land when Mana Vortex is cast, Mana Vortex is countered. What's the Oracle text on this?
I need to look this up. I need to read it myself.
All right, let me read it again. Here's the Oracle text. It is 1 and 2 blue for an enchantment. When you cast this spell, counter it unless you sacrifice a land. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices a land. When there are no lands on the battlefield, sacrifice Mana Vortex.
Fucking this spell sucks. This card fucking sucks.
Tony, what do you think about this one?
I mean, it's fucking stupid.
Dumb fucking
Honestly,
card.
though, like, it definitely makes me salty, but there's this weird element of like, who the fuck would play this card? like, how did this get on the list? Like, how are enough people playing this that it like is registering at all? I feel like this has to be one of those like it's in 0% of deck cards is what I would guess. We'll figure that out in a bit, but like fuck, I don't know what is wrong with blue. Like why does blue do all these hurtful things? Why does it also have this? Like why? Just why? Who printed this and was like, yeah, this is good. We need this in the format. Fucking stupid ass shit. And the people who run it are fucking giddy when they play it too.
Oh,
that
absolutely.
0% of deck
oh,
people
yeah.
that run it, they're so fucking happy. I'm like, fuck you.
I mean, I'm giddy looking at it.
yeah, I can tell.
Sam, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, this card seems fucking stupid, man. I mean, it seems so annoying to play into. I do not appreciate it. I will echo Tony. Why does blue get this weird land stacks effect? Like, basically, you're just trying to get your land drops to feed into this so you don't go negative on lands. And maybe you can ramp and you go positive, but it seems pretty brutal. I could see this having a home in like decks with Kodama, like Kodama of the East Tree, the partner commander, where you can really like shit out a ton of lands from your hand, or decks that have things where you can bring lands back from your graveyard, play multiple lands per turn. So you break parity on this, and it just kind of either keeps your opponents neutral or slowly drains them.
Like maybe like Muldrotha or something?
Oh, yeah. This would be great with Muldrotha, because even if there are no lands, you could bring it back. But yeah, it seems just pretty unpleasant overall, for sure. But actually, the more I talk about it, seems pretty cool, actually. This Kodama deck I'm talking about seems pretty sick, actually.
Yeah, why don't you brew that one too, Sam?
Yeah, maybe I'm getting out of my deck building slump with a little Mana Vortex, you know?
That's all it took. A little bit of oppressive stacks.
How do you feel about this one, Mike?
I mean, I agree with you guys. This would be awful to play into. I'm glad it doesn't get a lot of play. It is not in many decks. I'll tell you right off the bat. It's in 1,248 decks.
That's not many.
That's not many at all. It's like one of the lowest counts.
Does that
we've
register
seen.
as a percentage?
No, 0%.
Yeah.
0%.
Classic.
It's brutal though. And one of the things that is funny, and I think the reason that this is a blue effect here, or was at least originally printed in blue, is because you take the most advantage of it by outdrawing your opponents. So if you're drawing more cards, you're not missing your land drop. So let's say you get to 5 lands and that's all your deck needs to function. Then you play this and then you get your opponent, they're missing their land drops because they're just drawing like 1 card a turn like a normal deck. And you're drawing like 3 because you're blue. So you're playing, extra stuff to get you extra cards here. And eventually they run out of lands. And then you just try and win from there somehow. It's brutal though.
Yeah.
It's brutal. And I do think there are some things in Commander that could really take advantage of it. Muldrotha was the one that like stood out to me as being a good option. It's also a 3-mana enchantment, so you can tutor it in Zur without needing to pay the casting cost of sacrificing a land.
Yeah, I don't know if Zur can break parity though in the right way.
You break it on there, like by doing that. Like everybody else has to sacrifice a land before you do.
Yeah, okay, that's true. That's a good point.
Not to mention if you're Zuring, you'd like just fucking.
You don't need lands, exactly. Yeah. You just keep tutoring other stuff out.
What kind of shitty person would put this in their Zur deck?
I don't know, but I got to reach out to V.
Yeah, I really think a Kodama Thrasios deck might be what I built.
Yeah, next. I think it's pretty solid. Thrasios.
Or Kodama Silas Wren, and then I can have the Gitrog monster in there too. And, sacking the lands is actually a good thing. You got a stew. You got a stew going.
Yeah, there's something. There's some brew.
Yeah, there's a brew there. Anywho. Where does this fall on the top 300 salty card list there, Mike?
Why don't y'all take some guesses?
I got a guess.
I have my guess.
Throw them out there.
257.
245.
Oh.
Sam takes it.
Oh.
But you should again not feel particularly proud. This comes in at 79.
Oh, what? Shit. Okay, it makes sense.
It makes sense in that, like, if this landed on the table, I would be so fucking pissed. It's not even funny. But I've just, like, never... I put what I put because I was like, who the fuck plays this? Again, 0% of decks. Like, how is this possibly generating enough salt to, like, warrant a top 100 card?
But also at the same time, the way that the EDH Rec salt voting goes is that people are seeing this card and having the same reaction that we had when we all had. We were like, what the fuck is this bullshit? I hate this.
How dare
I never
they?
want to see this.
Yeah.
So I get it. But that is a very interesting one. So what are some of the top commanders? I mean, does it even have that stat?
It's in 0% of decks.
No, we hit a couple of them. It's in Muldrotha, it's in Zur, it's in Lavinia, Grand Arbiter, and Sen triplets. So just like everyone's favorite. Let me be a real sicko in Azorius or Azorius Plus kind of decks.
Yeah.
It's also in Numat the Devastator, which is one of the original Elder Dragons. The one that when it deals combat damage to a player, you can pay 3, and if you do, destroy up to 2 target lands. So just like the Jeskai land hate kind of deck.
Mm-hmm.
And then the top commander for it is Taniwa, which is a 5-mana phasing trample summon legendary creature serpent. At the beginning of your upkeep, all lands you control phase out.
Oh, yeah, man. From fucking Mirage. Taniwa. Yeah.
So you dodge the downside of Mana Vortex because all your lands phase out in your upkeep. And then all of your opponents keep eating the land sacrifice every time.
That is very interesting. I don't think I'll finish the list, but I may brew this Kodama Silas Wren deck. I think it would be
purely off of Mana Vortex.
Off of Mana Vortex and Pox.
Well, with that disturbing thought, that wraps up our salty card of the week. Thanks for playing.
Thanks, Mike. That was a lovely salty card. Actually, it was a really fucking shitty.
It was a gross fucking salty
hated
card.
That.
Yeah, I did not like that at all.
On a lighter note, Thank you to all the prospectors out there that tune in every single week to the Howling Salt Mine. You know we're going to shout out our Salt Packet Plus tier members, and they are Thoughtsmas Prime, Rothbox, Sire Speedy, Bobo Fett, Brandon Mousecop, Chameleon, Brimstone, Captain Cross, Elgo Fogel, Clearbrook, D. Beeson, Gilgamesh, Doug's Dad, Bark Bark, Ebes, JS Evolved, Kylock, Pez, Swankub, The Quiet One, and Vok. Thanks for all the support, guys. We appreciate it. And of course, thank you for the support of all the prospectors out there that tune in every single week to the Howling Salt Mine. If you're looking for more Howling Salt Mine content, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Howling Salt Mine. We've got a bunch of awesome extra salt episodes up there. We have about 21 right now. So if you're really craving some more of that Howling Salt Mine content, you can listen to all of those episodes and check it out. We've got a bunch of other bonus episodes out there for all the patrons at every tier, like HSM Listens to HSM, where we listen to our old episodes and provide commentary over them. And we also have our Stray Grains episodes out there, all the tangents that don't make the final cut in the episode. We take those and package them up for the patrons. And our newish occasional series, Off the Rails, where we just kind of ramble about things going on in our lives, things we're passionate about, stuff like that. Check it out. There's an awesome community in the Discord. It's just a lot of fun. And don't you want to have fun? I bet you do. Another way that you can have fun is to send us your salty stories, whether that's on our website, thehowlingsaltmine.com, or howlingsaltmine.com are going to get you there. We have a submission form on there that you can just fill out, put in your name, put in the story title, give us your salt, send it in, and we will throw it into our bag and mix it around every single week and pull out 3 stories. Or you can send it to our Gmail, which is thehowlingsaltmine@gmail.com. Another way you can support us is with our merchandise at Bonfire. We've got shirts, we have our playmats over at Jankmats, and we have our custom Dragon Shield sleeves being sold right on our lovely website. So check all that shit out. Lastly, another way that you can help us out is giving us a 5-star review in your favorite podcast app of choice, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, what have you. That's going to help us stick out in the algorithm so more people can find the show and we can spread the salt. Lastly, we got to shout him out, our buddy Devin Burnett, for being really cool and giving us our lovely podcast art. If you're ever in Asheville, North Carolina, hit him up and get a tattoo because he's a really cool guy.
10,000 subscribers are buzzed.
Indeed. Thanks again, everybody. And as always, stay salty. And don't forget to draw an additional card during your draw step.
It's the Howling Salt Mine. The Howling Salt Mine.
I'm going to pick the one that has the best formatting.
Randomly pick the one with the best formatting.
Yeah, no, it's random, but also it's weighted random, and you get rewarded if you have spaces in your giant block of text. Yeah, I think it is that type of the week. I said type of the week. I mean,
it's that type of the week.
It is that time of the week. It's the time. I said time of the week. It's the time of the week. Yeah, maybe you could have mulliganed a little bit differently to have a different game plan, but I think the salt of never getting that land is something everybody can at least feel, but truly everybody can whatever. I'll just fucking delete that thing. But truly the salty fucking man. I'm not gonna re-say that. I'm just gonna delete it.
Everyone can relate to.
Yeah, I guess so. Fuck it. I'm deleting that. I'm just deleting it.
I've been there.
Yeah, I'm just
gonna make a great loop.
Just delete that. You know what? Just delete that. Not worth
it. I'm not re-saying it. Fuck it.
That's actually one of my favorite things. What am I doing? One of these two, and one of us realizes we're just spewing like an
just
extra
bullshit.
Degree level of
Delete
bullshit, because half of it's bullshit anyway, but sometimes it's so bad that we don't even want to keep it.
Just delete that shit.